Okay, looks like we're right at 3 p.m. here in the UK. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, if you're in a different time zone, and welcome to the third installment in our series of 4 virtual product tours that we've been hosting and will continue to host over the next month or so for Linkfresh ERP. Now, in our first 2 virtual product tours, we covered traceability and mobile solutions. And for those that weren't able to make it, those recordings are available. If you'd like to see them, just send us a message after this one. Now, in today's session, we're going to focus on Linkfresh forecasting and planning for the fresh produce industry. And just like last time, a bit of housekeeping. This session will be recorded. You will all be muted just during the presentation, but you can ask questions in real time by using the chat feature. So a quick overview of the agenda for this webinar. We'll start with a high-level introduction of who Aptean is and who Linkfresh ERP is. We'll then talk a little bit about the Linkfresh platform itself and the interconnectivity that it provides between demand forecast, sales forecast, purchasing, harvest, etc. And then we'll get into the live Linkfresh demonstration, where we'll show you how that interconnectivity looks as it happens, live in action. So with that, my name is Peter Carrero. I am the Linkfresh ERP account manager, and I'm based here in the UK. Now I'm joined by James Rogers, who's our lead solutions consultant for the solution, and our technical expert, and he'll be showing us the system firsthand and guiding us through an overview of the capabilities around forecasting. Now, as usual, we'll start with the top, kind of a high-level overview of Aptean. I'm sure some of you have seen this, and many of you may be aware that Aptean joined forces with Linkfresh ERP in 2019, along with several different Microsoft Dynamics food ERPs, basically as part of our overall mission to become the #1 technology provider to the food industry. Now, Aptean's core mission at the very highest level, it's all about moving businesses forward through technology and through digitalization. And we do this by developing purpose-built modern solutions. So within the food industry, for example, all of our Microsoft Dynamics platforms are designed specifically for their corresponding sub-verticals. And obviously within fresh produce, Linkfresh ERP is our flagship solution. And this basically means that we get the bulk of investment in R&D, product development, and roadmap as well. Now, as a global technology company, our footprint does span all over the world, from central offices in the UK, in the US, operations centers in the Netherlands, and many more. Our international reach extends all the way to the farms in places like South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, of course, and all over the Americas and throughout EMEA. And as a whole, with our combined solutions, we work with just over 900 food and beverage customers worldwide. So let's talk a little bit about the platform itself and that shared vision with Microsoft that you've heard me mention a couple times. So here we have a graphic that depicts the Linkfresh platform as it sits within the Microsoft Dynamics world. So a fresh produce focus, fresh produce expertise, coupled with Microsoft's vision of an evergreen platform, positions Linkfresh as the future-proof ERP within fresh produce industry. Now, by leveraging the Microsoft platform, our suite of ERP solutions, including Linkfresh, have deeper functionality in business intelligence and reporting, and scalability through extensions and connectors that some of you on this call actually have already leveraged. So as part of the Aptean family of solutions, Linkfresh ERP offers additional value and IP beyond the core ERP solution. We're talking about standard integrations with supply chain systems, plant management systems, and our compliance tools, just to name a few. So as a couple examples, you'll notice the value-added modules there on the right-hand side. For those of you with large fleets of vehicles, Linkfresh can expand logistics capabilities to the road by providing delivery route optimization, transport management, simply by connecting our Paragon TMS solution. Another example, for those of you with heavier processing or more complex manufacturing that requires more of a deeper visibility into the shop floor data capture directly from the signals, we have the standard integration to Appian's factory MES system. And by the same token, highly automated pack houses, factories with extensive engineering requirements. Again, we can simply connect our API Pro asset management solution, and that list goes on. We have a large range of IP. Okay, so with that, let's talk about today's topic, which is all about forecasting and planning. Now, we'll shortly get into the demo, but to sort of set the stage for James here, I think it's fair to assume that everyone on this call, recognizes the ability to plan for product, plan for material, labor, and capacity is all fundamental to the success of business. Now, in the fresh produce industry, as you're very well aware, there are variables and complexities beyond other food industries that require a heck of a lot more visibility and real-time decision making, especially when it comes to forecasting. So if we just look at this year, between the current situation that we're all experiencing and potential upcoming geopolitical shifts, we continue to add complexities to the fresh produce supply chain. Now, companies who can manage changes in real time are obviously better able to capitalize. And Linkfresh ERP automatically provides that real-time information flow from harvest to production to sales, and basically enabling you for quick and efficient decision making. So through integrated supply chain data, Linkfresh extends forecasting beyond the typical ERP forecast. And James, again, is going to show you just how Linkfresh incorporates considerations and functionality for short shelf life, late arriving orders, harvest forecasts, fully integrated EDI, of course. So we'll start with Linkfresh forecasting, then we'll move into the planning board, and then into the trading board. So with that, let's get into the system. James, if you're ready to share.
I am indeed. Thanks, Pete. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to session number 3. Just recap on sessions 1 and 2 just for a second. We saw in session 1 how Linkfresh has added fresh produce functionality around produce attributes. I talked about QC blocking and testing. I showed you how we've extended to include pallet IDs for traceability. And then in session number 2, we moved on to mobile and touchscreen technology with barcode scanning in order to impose that rigor on your processes. And we captured the operational flows in what I call typically a buy, grade, pack, sell process. So that's what we've seen so far. Just to talk about what we're going to see today, just to pick up on what Pete's introduction there. I'm going to talk about forecasting, and I really want to emphasize the fact that we have extended the forecasts beyond a typical demand forecast that you'd seen in ERP and moved it supply side. So we've extended it to have a harvest forecast from the farms, and we've extended it to have a supply forecast for what you're expecting in from your vendors. The 2 key features, points 2 and 3, I really want to show today around the planning board for looking at upcoming supply and demand. I want to move on then to the trading board for handling short-term excess and shortfalls of inventory. Then move on to EDI. It's a strange topic, but it really does have a major impact on the planning process. So, orders arrive very, very late with very, very short lead times. So our customers are often working to educated guesses at the beginning of the production day. And I want to emphasize how important it is for EDI to arrive on the system, to remove those manual process and save valuable minutes in your working day. And then I want to finish with a couple of relevant features for handling depot dates, labeling, effectively how the retailer has imposed specific practices and procedures and how they're supported by Linkfresh in order for them really to aid their stock rotations in order to maximize the overall sales potential. And then I'm going to finish with the concept of fulfillment rules, where you can preload templates to support the routing of order lines if you have multiple pack houses. Again, The principle is to save you some valuable minutes in order so you have the maximum amount of time to handle your stock on a day-to-day basis. Okay, this is my introduction. Whip over to the system. Excuse me, I need to refresh. Okay, so I'm starting now with forecasts. If I start with the search box and I enter the word forecast into my search facility. Obviously, we're not here to talk about cash flow forecasts, but you can see these top two. We've got forecasts and we've got demand forecasts. Now, I'll spend a second or two just talking about demand forecasts. They are effectively the Business Central feature which has been supplied by Microsoft. We've extended it a bit at Linkfresh, so I'll just dwell in there for a second or two just to show you what we've done to this table, and it really sets us up for how Linkfresh has extended this. So if I call up this fresh demand forecast, we can see some numbers at the top. We can see days across the top. If you're familiar with this, you'll know that you can flip this view. Perhaps I want to see my forecasts or maintain my forecast by week, and we can see how the columns have now changed to weekly mode, or perhaps by month. I'll set it back into daily mode. We can see here under the Linkfresh tab how you can, if you want to, separate out. For those of you that do production for third parties, and perhaps you have your own inventory production, you can specify how is this forecasting table maintained for my own production or my third party, and that feeds through into our MPS system in terms of the own and third party planning worksheet. If I just drill into one of these numbers just for a second or two, just to show you a few other features that Linkfresh has added in. You can see here we've got label dates, we've got this inventory type, is it own or third party? If it is a third party, who is the third party owning customer? The label dates I'll talk about a bit later on. So basically there's a forecast table. It's called a demand forecast, but it's really about outbound product. So let's actually, while I'm there, I'll just show you actions and functions. And we do within this feature, there is the option there to copy a production forecast. So you can take a forecast data set and copy it to another one. So that's your standard, slightly extended demand forecast that's come from Business Central. Now, if I go back to my search box and type in forecast, and I take this option at the top, I want to show you how we've taken this and extended it out. So the first thing that you can see, we can hold, or you guys can hold on the system, multiple forecast tables. You may have a short, medium, and long-term forecast. You may have a commercial forecast, perhaps one that's optimistic and another one that's pessimistic. And we can see here the forecast type. So we've not just got sales and shipments, sort of outbound forecast, if you like, but we've also got these inbound forecasts. We've got a harvest forecast and a purchase or receipt forecast. So, what are we expecting in? What supply are we expecting into the business? Now let's just firstly take a look at the sales forecast, because there's lots of features in here when you make a comparison to the previous table that we looked at. Okay, so as you normally expect, you've seen this a few times with Linkfresh. At the top, we've got a whole bunch of filters. I filtered down to just show me the forecast for Dartford. I could, if I want to, just filter to an item. So various different filters that we've got at the top of the form. Like we saw in the previous one, I can flip. Actually, just go here. I can toggle my grid around. If I show us my columns, my period, I should get my dates going across the top here. And just like we saw on the previous table, I can flip it from daily mode to weekly mode, monthly mode, and so on and so forth. Now, in terms of the figures that you maintain in this grid, again, with the previous forecast, you were effectively maintaining just quantities. With the Linkfresh revision, you can see that there's a whole bunch of values that we can show on this grid. Not just the volume, but we can show the potential revenue. We can show the potential margin in this forecast. So very powerful how we've extended what would normally be in an ERP, which would be the quantity-based forecast, to be able to view all of these different data values within this grid. Now, I got ahead of myself just now, and hopefully you saw how you can have various different rows and columns presented to you. You can effectively pivot this view around. So you saw on my actions, I went to functions, and I reversed the lines and columns, and I flipped the rows that you see down here across the columns. You probably also clocked that in here, show as lines, show as columns. I can make changes. I can change what I want to see in these rows and columns. So instead of seeing the period, if I want to see the items by customer, I can change my columns, click OK, and what I get is a list of customers going across the column headings. Really quite powerful. If I go to my actions and I go to my functions and just dwell for a second just on that list of options, you can see integration with Excel. So I can drop this out into Excel, work with it, and import it back in again. We've seen reverse lines and columns, and we've also added this facility to be able to generate the forecast. Now, what we're going to generate it from? We can copy it from a previous forecast, like we saw in the first feature, but I can generate my forecast from sales history. I can apply perhaps a date range shift. I can apply a quantity adjustment. So maybe I'll up it by 10%, reduce it by 5%. So I can manipulate, when I generate this forecast, I can manipulate the data, shift the dates, shift the values, and ultimately copy it across to a new forecast set. So really quite powerful. Hopefully you can see how we've extended the features within that forecast table. If we now take a look at one of the harvest forecasts, and if I click on my 2021 harvest forecast, we can remove the filter, and we just concentrate down on my good old parsnips. You can see here I've got my various different growers. This is a harvest forecast. I can see the various different growers that I have available, and I've got a number here from my parsnips. It feeds in from our Linkfresh farming module, where you can specify against a grower their plots, the plot size, the sites that they have, and that can all roll up to generate and estimate the area that is available to grow, in this example, parsnips against. We can maintain here an expected yield. So I've got 2.4 hectares. So in this example, in this forecast, I'm expecting somewhere between perhaps 5 and 6 tons of these parsnips that are primarily coming in from McCartney. So hopefully, and again, filters up here for filtering by the various different grower attributes. So again, hopefully I'm getting across how we've taken that concept of a forecast and pushed it back supply side, way beyond, in my experience, way beyond the sort of toolkit that you would normally get in a standard ERP. And Linkfresh is shining through just there. Okay, so sorry, excuse me one second, and go off to Linkfresh and just move on to my planning board. Now, what I've often seen when I've gone to visit customers over the years, I often see typically spreadsheets in the business that are effectively showing an opening, supply, demand, and closing stock across a time frame. So the closing stock in this example at the top, we've got items down the side. We open with 120. We've got supply and demand coming in, which means we're going to close with 142. That becomes our opening stock for this top row in terms of weeks. Now, that could be, depending on how you operate. You may operate in weeks. You may operate as this second set suggests, in days. Perhaps you operate with some combination of the two. So you operate with days in the short term, moving out to perhaps next week and the week after, and then perhaps extending out to say, right, I want to see months following that. And then again, depending on what sort of inventory you're handling within the same business, you may have fresh produce, which lasts days. So you want a planning board which works in days. You may be handling more robust, perhaps root vegetables, where you want to work in weeks. And almost certainly you will be handling packaging, which has a very long shelf life. And you may want your planning board to start looking in months. And all this is fully supported and embedded in the ERP, which is what we call our planning board. So if we go away and take a look at our planning board, and I go to my planning board list, where again we can see multiple planning boards. I can hold as many planning boards on the system as I want. If I call up here, I've got one here for short shelf life, long, and packaging. So let's go with the top one. This is my short shelf life planning board. And as you see with most things Linkfresh, we've got a bunch of filters at the top. So I can filter by my location. I can filter by what I call my planning group code. Effectively, what that is a set of items. I can group my planning boards into what we call board groups. And there we are. If we look at the fields at the bottom, I can specify when I want my planning board to start. In this example, I'm starting from the current day. I want to work from today. Perhaps if I'm working with packaging, I might want to start a month away. We can do that with the start date or the start date formula. And here, if we think back to my spreadsheet example that I showed you, what time frames do I want to work in? If I drop that down, these are completely configurable by you guys. I've got set up a couple of simple ones. I want to work in either 4 weekly time buckets, or perhaps I want to work on a 9-day horizon. Perhaps I want some sort of mix and match. You can set that up using what we call our period sets. Now, the last thing to explain in terms of this design card, if you like, I always look at this as a planning board design card. The sources of supply and demand that we see in this grid in the middle. Now, I've got a pretty simple setup here. I've got firm sales orders and firm purchase orders feeding into my planning board. If I just whip back to my PowerPoint, I'm basing this around. I should have mentioned this at the beginning. I'm basing this next few minutes around this concept of a mixed pepper. Retail pack of mixed peppers. We've got red, green, and orange going into this mixed pepper, and I just want to show you that as a worked example. If I go to my planning board is certified. If I go to my process and generate planning info, the system goes away. It looks at my sources of supply and demand. It looks at my period sets that I want to use. There's my 4 weeks. If I scroll this down to my mixed peppers, we can see that whole opening, supply, demand, closing stock concept. So if I start at my top level with my mixed peppers, we can see that I've got demand here for 250. If I click on that, we can see the source of demand. It's a sales order 48 going outbound. If I scroll down, we can start to see the components that make up that product. So it's used the production bill of materials on the system. It's incorporated the scrap percentage if that's maintained, and it's exploded that out to say, okay, if I'm going to produce 250 cases of the mixed peppers, well, I'm going to need a demand of 12,000 kilos of individual peppers. So we can see the demand, the brought forward, the demand, supply, the stock carried forward, and so on and so forth. So if I flip back now and just show you how I can now include in this planning board perhaps the supply forecast from the previous section that I talk about. I can go here, I can click here, I can say, right, I'm going to include a supply forecast. I can go here to say which supply forecast do I want to use. I'm going to include my 2020 forecast. I recertify, I've designed my planning board, and I go to generate my planning info. And if I scroll down, we can see I've still got my 250 sales orders. But if I scroll down, I can see, based on my supply forecast, I should, in theory, in this week be receiving in 15,000 green peppers. That's going to be get carried forward to week 2, where I'm going to consume 12,000, meaning I've got 3,000 remaining. Now, in terms of these peppers, I've pre-configured a 5-day shelf life on the peppers. So what this row is telling me, at the end of next week, I'm going to have an excess of 3,000 green peppers. So again, all of that information, all of the information that's stored in Linkfresh is feeding in to firstly the design, and then all the dynamic data in terms of stock level, supply and demand, feeding in to give you this opening, supply, demand, closing stock level. Okay, so that's planning board. Excuse me. Right, let's move on to trading board. Now, just to finish off, the planning board, really is one of my favorite features in Linkfresh. It's really quite powerful. The fact that view is embedded in the ERP is tremendous. Okay, so if we move off onto trading board, and to repeat what the trading board is about, it's about handling short-term supply and demand problems. So if we've got excess stock, if we've got shortfall, it provides the ability to quickly create a sales order to sell excess, or a purchase order to get more in. Perhaps if you've got more than one site, then perhaps you've got an inventory issue at one of your sites, and you need to transfer stock between sites. It can support that. Again, just to dwell on the interface, we can see various different filters at the bottom. We've got toggle buttons there to what sources of supply and demand do we want, filters around location, filters around inventory planning types, and so on and so forth. If I go to process and I go to update trading board, and we can see the grid in the middle has now assembled itself. It's applied the filters, in which case, for mine, it was location. And if we just dwell for a second on the columns that are presented to you, if you think back to session 1, I talked about these produce attributes that we can see with various different quantities. So what are we currently holding? What's firm supply coming in? What's firm demand going out? Therefore, what is available? Highlighted in red where we might have a problem. A little bit of information there in terms of the quantity that are available per pallet. And then what are we going to do? What can we do from this point? So if we look at row 3, in terms of my loose apples, I'm carrying 4,500 kilograms of loose apples. Far too much. I've got no demand for these loose apples. I need to shift them. I need to sell them. So if I go up here into my trade type and I go to sell, the customer field pops open. It then allows me to select my customer. I'll go with Arthur David, as I often do, and I'm going to try and sell some of these apples to Arthur David. I can click into the quantity, and perhaps I can sell them 700 kilos of these apples. If I move to the right, it prompts me for a unit price. I then generate my unit price, and then I should be able to go to process and sell. Do I want a quick sell line, all lines with a quantity? I'm only selling these apples, but if I also sold some oranges and some pears, those would get assembled into a sales order. I say yes. It's prompting me around credit limits. Didn't expect that, but I carry on, and it's generated me sales order number 351, and that's ready to move on through my order fulfillment process. If I close that down, call it back up again, go back to my trading board, update my trading board, and I look perhaps down at my row 7, which are my standard oranges. We can see that I'm carrying 900. I've got demand for nearly 1,400. I'm about 500 short. So I can go into buy mode. I can say, right, it comes in quantities of 300. 2 pallets. So I'm going to order 600. Who am I ordering it from? This time I'm after a vendor. I can go in and select Railway Farms, specify a price. Again, I'll go for 225, and then I should be able to process and buy. And that should generate me a purchase order number 339. So the trading board, hopefully nice and easy to understand. A really neat feature, I think, probably unique to this industry. I've worked with numerous ERPs over the years, and you know, very rare to see such a nice, simple concept. Okay, so I've covered forecast, I've covered planning board, I've covered trading board. I want to whip back now to talk you around EDI is my next topic to talk around. And there's not much to show you. There's not a lot to demonstrate with EDI. I think that the principle with EDI is Linkfresh recognizes that the EDI is a thing. The retailers will place orders. They will place them, in my experience, very, very late. And I'm going to talk to you about a timeline on EDI in just a sec. Linkfresh will be looking to integrate to what we call a van, which will be one of these systems. Typically, we work with TrueCommerce. We will be looking to take messages from TrueCommerce and to import those orders in automatically and typically send invoices back out. We can do additional things like ASNs and SSCC labels, PODs and various other things, but primarily we're looking at getting the orders in and the invoices back out again, and you'll need a van. And if we scroll down, and I just try and talk you through a timeline, because I think this is a worked example. This was from a customer that I did work with, and I just want to talk you through the timelines of perhaps a typical scenario where EDI is encountered. So I want to concentrate around perhaps the Wednesday. I've got a timeline going across the bottom, and just to dwell on what maybe happened on this Wednesday. So perhaps at Wednesday at 6 o'clock in the morning, the retailers will release their orders for delivery the very next day on the Thursday. So the orders released at 6 o'clock on the Wednesday, you're going to fulfill, and the lorries need to start arriving at the distribution centres on the Thursday. So that means if we push back to the Tuesday, the planning process for Wednesday will begin on the Tuesday. They're going to be working to forecast. They're going to be working to educated guesswork. They're probably going to use the previous week's data. Perhaps they may take the previous 3 Wednesdays, apply some sort of weighting, and adjust it accordingly. Packaging items will get picked, perhaps on the Tuesday for the Wednesday. When the orders come in, by then, typically the production will have started. The orders get finalized to finish the production. The wagons perhaps will roll in the afternoon and continue to go through the night. And the vehicles will start arriving typically in the middle of the night into the distribution centres for the Thursday. And I just want to draw your attention just to up here and that very small time frame that you've got between when the orders arrive and when you finalise the packing. Every minute counts in that area. And it's the very fact that Linkfresh can import those orders electronically without a human being there having to print it out and type them in. We can apply rules, which we'll see in a sec, around depot dates and fulfillment rules to aid the process of getting those EDI orders in and assembling them ready to fulfill orders against and to finalise that planning. Every second counts in this area. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense about EDI. Now, I just want to go back to the next section is around depot dates, and I want to talk around depot dates. These last 2 features are really around building in rules, about building in templates, again, to minimize and utilize every second in this process. So a few concepts I want to get across to you in the next five or 10 minutes. The first is around the production of labels. So Linkfresh has an entire labeling job feature. It's designed around what I would call a dynamic bill of materials. So the retailers, to aid their rotation, I've seen this a few times, perhaps will have different color-coded labels for different color-coded label stock for their rotation in their distribution center or indeed their store. And Linkfresh can support this process. We can support this process if we whip across and look at the system. And I look at my production bombs, and I look at my example of a pineapple. We can see in the production bomb, we can see 7 different colored labels, 7 different items, and we can see this column that says item label day. So when an order comes in, the system will dynamically reconstruct its bill of materials in order to instruct the label room to use the right stock and to instruct the storeman perhaps to pick the right stock. Ultimately, it can create what we call a label job for what is often a label room, so that they get the right dates, they get the right expiry dates, they get the right country of origin from those produce attributes, and ultimately they are using the right colored label stock. That's a dynamic production bill of material. We've got it in terms of the pineapple. I'll just dwell on that for a second. If I go to my production order and I create myself a new production order, and I'm going to go for my pineapple, and I'm going to specify a quantity. Today is Tuesday, so let's go for tomorrow. I'm going to go for 200 cases of pineapple, and I go to process and refresh my production order. Excuse me. I'm going to process and refresh my production order, and then I click here and I go to line and components. What we can see here that this day, on a Wednesday, we're going to use green labels. So the production order, when it goes on, it knows the dates, it will dynamically demand the correct production, the correct label stock for the production order. So that's label dates. Now, in terms of depot dates, again, what the retailers will often do. Sorry, if I go to pattern. We support the concept of what we call the depot day pattern. So if I call this record up, this is a template, a pattern card, which you can apply to your items to say that when an order comes in, the retailer may say, okay, if I place an order on a Wednesday, can you please split it? 80% of that I want dated perhaps on the Thursday, and 20% of it, please date it Friday. So you can pre-build these templates in, apply them to the items, and then when the production order hits the system, it will split, in this example, at 80-20. So again, what I'm trying to get across to you are the features that we have in Linkfresh where you can build templates to aid you saving those minutes without necessarily a human being having to work all this information out, so that you can get the data in and push it through down into the production area, down into the labeling room quickly and easily to save those minutes. Okay, the last thing I want to talk to you around is fulfillment rules. So fulfillment rules are, perhaps you have a multiple pack house scenario. So an order may come in from a retailer and you want to split that order across multiple pack houses. Again, effectively, this is a template to save you time. If we look at this top one, my fulfillment rule number 1, if I open this record, we can see that when this is a fulfillment rule that says, well, first thing I need to draw your attention to is how are we going to do the split? Is it going to be based around a share, effectively a percentage? So I'm going to say that 75% is going to go to pack house 1 and 25% is going to go to pack house 2, or is it based around a quantity break? So here we can see that I'm going to say when an order arrives, the first 150 are going to get allocated to Dartford, and the remainder, anything up to 100,000, will go to Bristol. As you can see, the grid, you can have as many records in this grid as you want to. And if I look at fulfillment rule number 2, we can see that this is a share. So I'm going to say when an order comes in, 75% of it is going to go to Bristol and 25% of it is going to go to Lincoln. So again, no need for a human being necessarily to do this work. The order comes in, when it gets released, these fulfillment rules will kick in and split the order up for you. Final thing I want to show you is what we call the fulfillment rule assignment. If I go here, we can see that for various different parameters, these rows in this grid, if we look at row number 1, if an order comes in for ASDA, I'm going to apply my fulfillment rule number 1, which was that share rule that we saw, and I'm going to apply that rule from the beginning of December. I could specify an ending date if I want to. If I wanted to route more production to a particular pack house for a while, then we got effective dates just here. And then at the second row is suggesting that for this particular item, for orange cases, if an order comes in from my good friends Arthur David, then I'm going to apply fulfillment rule number 2, which was that I believe it was that 150 first 150 going off to Lincoln, or whichever the rule was. So fulfillment rules and fulfillment rule assignments, all about preloading with templates to save on those minutes that are available to you in the day. So there we go. I mean, that was all of the features that I wanted to cover with you today. We talked about forecasting, planning board, trading board. I talked you through EDI, and I talked you through these very fresh produce specific features that we have to help speed up that process. So with that, I'm gonna hand back to Pete just to say thanks, and hopefully we'll see you for session number 4. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, James. Good job as usual. And thank you everyone for attending. I didn't see any questions come through in the chat window, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. As usual, if questions come up after the fact, please do send James and I a message. You'll see our contact information there on the screen, our email addresses, and we are available to dive a little deeper into Linkfresh with a one-on-one session. Appreciate this was rather a high level, but hopefully it gives you a good taste for our capabilities. So with that, again, thank you all very much. Stay safe and see you in the next one. Take care.